The playoffs are getting closer, and it's time to start making plans for your sports cards. What's going on, guys? Matt here, back again with another video. As I just said, the NBA playoffs are nearing with the start date of May 22nd. You might say, Matt, that's six weeks away. But I would like to say, failure to prepare is preparing to fail. Now, not everything about sports cards has to do with money and investing, but if you want to be successful in that aspect, you need to be ahead of the curve and plan ahead. Keep in mind, this is more useful for your short and medium term investments. This won't matter as much with your blue chips because the playoffs won't dictate their prices as much, because their legacy is already made. Before we get into planning, I have to outline the structure of the playoffs. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but like last season, we're gonna have a play-in tournament. So don't just look at the top 8 teams from each conference. You potentially have to look at the top 10 teams from each conference. For the play-in tournament, it'll pit the 7th and 8th best teams in each conference against one another, with the winner earning the number 7 seed. The loser of that game will then face the winner of the matchup between the 9th and 10th best teams, and the winner of that contest will then become the number 8 seed. Now that we know the playoff structure, what can you guys do? First off, start looking at the league standings and analyze each team. Looking at the Eastern Conference, you have 3 clear teams that are on top. Then you have seeds 4 through 8 that are separated by 1.5 games, followed by the Pacers and the Bulls afterwards. Then you have 4 teams who are within 2.5 games of each other that are trying to get a play-in spot. On the flip side, in the Western Conference, the top 9 teams are clear, with the 10th spot having 3 teams vying for it. This is important because when the hype for the playoffs starts to build, potential playoff players will have their cards start to go up, and hence players that don't make the playoffs will have their cards drop off. Looking at anyone that you've invested in the short term this season, if you don't believe in them long term and they're not going to be making the playoffs, I'd be trying to sell their cards now. I'll make another video on this, but start targeting your non-playoff players during the playoffs, because the hype will be off them and their prices will actually be lower. In saying so, look at the teams that will be clearly in the playoffs and use this as an opportunity to buy them up, especially if you believe in their team. Keep in mind, each round the player progresses, their cards typically go up. But if they get knocked out, expect a sharp fall. This is essentially gambling within the playoffs, but if you take profit occasionally and roll over the rest, you'll be quite safe there. This happened to me last year personally in the playoffs when I didn't believe the Miami Heat would come out of the East. And by the time they got to the finals, I'd already sold most of my Heat cards before it was at its peak. Looking at their star player Jimmy Butler's Prism PSA 10 rookie card, just before the playoffs to the end of the playoffs, from a starting point of $520 US, we can see his card go up with each series win. Firstly, after the Indiana series win, his card goes up to $950 US, and then after the upset win over Milwaukee, his price peaks at $1,150 US. This is a classic case of FOMO, as I explained in my 3 mistakes I've made on sports cards investing video. People start to get excited and think they need a Butler card before he potentially goes and wins the title. The drop afterwards is quite crazy. After the Boston series win, it actually plummets to $618 US, and then stays around the same price for the Lakers versus Heat series. But right after being knocked out, it falls down even more sharply to $430 US, which is lower than the starting point I mentioned before at $520 US. This graph just highlights how sometimes a player's price has hype and excitement built into it before anything big happens. I've said in a previous video, the best time to sell players that you think will win the championship is actually right before they win the championship. Partly because of the reason I just said, and also because everyone is in a rush to sell once they do win the championship. This is due to an oversupply of the card being sold because people are in a rush to sell it. We've seen this evident now last year with Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, LeBron James last year after he won the finals, and now Tom Brady after the Super Bowl this year. Personally, I'll be selling my short-term cards during this series, and that's just because the hype is high and to maximize profit. But yeah, I'll do a fun video in the future on my playoff predictions and top investments for the playoffs. And I think that'll be a fun video just because we can review that afterwards and see how I went. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know down below what your playoff plans are. As always, guys, I appreciate all the support you guys have been giving me. Give us a like and hit the subscribe button if you guys haven't already. And I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.